I'm back with Kari Lake, website at karilake.com and Twitter at Kari Lake, the new book, Unafraid. And Kari, let me ask you about that, because I think, the one thing that people think about Republicans is that they might be sound on policy and they might recognize what's going on with Biden, but they're so timid, so cautious, even with regard. I would have thought we'd have 4 impeachments running already, but the Republican approach is, no, let's just make sure that we cross the T's and dot the I's. There seems to be a kind of slow motion, in contrast with the Democrats who hit hard, they indict before they have evidence. The defining feature, I think, of you as people look at you as a politician is you're well-spoken, you're measured in your voice, but you are unafraid. So I think a perfect title for this book. But talk about how you became that way. How did you have a temperament that is different than most Republicans?
I talk about a lot of this in the book. And first, I want to tell your listeners and your viewers that this is not a typical book. It wasn't written by a consultant. It came from my heart, and it's a page turner. I didn't write this book like most politicians where they go, I need to write a book. I'm about to, run for office. I started writing this book after our victory was stolen, and I was in a dark place. I wanted to tell people how a girl, youngest of 9, came from very humble beginnings. As a matter of fact, when I look at it, we were really dirt poor. We just didn't know it. And we had to work for everything. If we wanted shampoo, we had to work for it. If we wanted toothpaste, that was just my life. I didn't know anything different. And I worked my way to living the American dream because of this great country, that if I worked hard enough, I could make it. I got into a dream career as a broadcast journalist, had that for 30 years, 27 covering Arizona, 22 as the lead anchor, #1 newscaster in the state. And then during COVID and after that botched 2020 election, I said, I can't deliver this news anymore because I don't feel it's truthful. And so I walked away from a 7-figure salary. And that was the moment I walked away from, I really walked away from fear, because I was afraid to leave that. There was a moment where I was praying to God and I just said, give me a sign. I don't want to regret walking away from the money. I know that sounds shallow, but that's a lot of money to walk away from into the great unknown and leaving a career where I was #1. And at that moment, Dinesh, I opened up the Bible just to a random page. I dropped my finger down, and amazingly, and I put this in the book because I wanted people to see this. This is a Bible verse that I believe God sent to me at that moment when I needed it. It's 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 7. I don't want to get too religious, but I'm going to get religious right now. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can take nothing out. I felt that was a sign from God that, Kari, you're on the right path. And I believe it was, because sure enough, right after I walked away and told the people what I was up to, that I was leaving, I couldn't do this anymore, Arizonans started reaching out and said, we need you to run for office. That is how I ended up in the middle of the political world, in the middle of a political movement, one that we've never seen like this in Arizona. And now I think it's running across the country. I ended up in the middle of politics at such a pivotal time, and how I ended up friends with President Trump, and now how I'm on a mission to save our country. And it's not just me. It's never been about me. This is a movement of real everyday Americans who are recognizing what's happening and saying, what can we do to save this country? And this is why, Dinesh, I continue to fight for our elections. Because everyone in Arizona did everything right. They showed up en masse on election day in huge numbers. And that's why they sabotaged election day. They couldn't let us win. They don't want the grassroots, we the people, to win. And so I'm fighting our cases in court. And thankfully, everyday Americans have chipped in to help us fight those cases. And the people who run our elections are so upset about it that they're now suing me for defamation for having the courage to speak out. These same people who tried to keep true and honest journalists out of the newsroom, out of the press room when it came time to cover this election, are trying to keep me from speaking about it. So this is a book that I think it will get people fired up. I think it will encourage them. And I've given it to my most burly Papa Bear friends and my most girly Mama Bear friends, and all of them have said, I could not put this book down. As a matter of fact, Representative Matt Gaetz told me yesterday that he picked it up. He was in Florida. He picked it up because I couldn't put it down. I read it all night, and then I woke up the next morning and finished it while I was on the beach. It is a page turner.
Absolutely. Guys, you got to check it out. The book is called Unafraid. Go to karilake.com. Kari, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Dinesh. And thanks for being such a fighter for our country. We love you so much.
I appreciate it.